Good evening, everyone. As attendees are coming into the webinar tonight, please go ahead and let us know where you're joining us from in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. I know that our members join us from all over the US and even all over the world, so we're happy to have you all here tonight. Here at NSHSS, we are headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm calling you from a slightly rainy Atlanta. Actually, today we've had some rain. Excited to hear where you all are calling us from tonight. We'll give it just a few minutes to fill up the webinar and we will get started. Thanks everyone for joining us. I see Texas and Florida represented. Those are two of our largest states of members. Actually, Florida, we're coming to you next year. We're actually having an event at Florida International University, so we'll hopefully see you at that in-person event. South Carolina, Seattle. Fantastic, all across the country. Connecticut, great to have you, Layla. Going to give it a minute or two here before we get started. Everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to let this session fill up a bit before we jump in. Another Georgia friend here, Amira, Peachtree City, not too far. More Texas represented, Dominic from Dallas. Thanks for joining us today, tonight, everyone, whatever time it is where you are. We're going to get started in just a minute here as we let folks join us tonight. Some more Georgia, Florida, fantastic, fantastic. Hope the weather is nice where you are this evening. All right, guys, I think we're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar this evening. Again, I want to welcome you all and thank you all for joining us tonight for the NSHSS University Partner Panel this fall. I want to welcome our members, our parents, our educators, and all of our friends to the University Partner Panel this evening. We've gathered some fantastic NSHSS partner institutions this evening that will be introducing their programs to you all. During this session, you're going to hear from Kunshan University, which is located in Kunshan, China, Monash University, which is located in Melbourne, Australia, the University of California, Berkeley, which is obviously in Berkeley, California, and then the University of Wyoming College of Business. Each of these partners, these NSHSS partners, are going to present their program information to you all. And then after we've heard from each of them, you'll have a chance to ask your questions. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So please type your questions in the Q&A window throughout the session and reserve your comments for the chat. So we're going to put our comments in the chat and any questions you have in the Q&A window, and we'll be sure to get to as many of them as possible. Now, this time, it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers this evening. Our first panelist, Ms. Emily Grube, is a global recruitment officer for undergraduate programs at Kunshan University with a focus on students and schools in the southeastern and northeastern United States, as well as the Caribbean. Prior to coming to DKU, Emily worked with international students and scholars coming to study in the US, as well as domestic students studying abroad. She earned her MS in higher education with a focus on international education from the University of Kentucky and a BA in history from Clemson University. She enjoys traveling, attempting art projects, and reading. Emily studied abroad herself in both Italy and Chile, so she's excited to introduce students to a truly global education at DKU. Emily, we're so excited to hear about DKU, so now I will let you take it away from here.
Thank you for that introduction, Grace. Let me quickly share my screen. Alrighty, so yeah, my name is Emily Grube and I am with Kunshan University, which is a joint venture institution that Duke University in North Carolina here in the US opened over in China, in Kunshan, China. I know I have a limited amount of time to tell you all the wonderful things about DKU, So I do want to point out that there is a QR code on each of the slides that will direct you to our virtual events page, and that that page has all sorts of different opportunities for you to learn more. We have a info session that's about 45 minutes long that are, and all of these events are live. We have a campus tour that's led by a current student, and it is kind of like a photo tour of their experience at DKU that's also live. And then we also have some application advice sessions. So the QR code on each slide is the same, goes to the same link, so definitely check that out. So yeah, as I mentioned, this is a program in China, in Kunshan, China. It's not too far from Shanghai. You do spend most of your time in China as a DKU student, but you also have the opportunity to spend a semester at Duke during your junior year or one of our other global locations for that international semester. No matter where you end up spending that semester your junior year, you do graduate with degrees from both Duke University and Duke Kunshan University. So you get a US degree and a Chinese degree. So in case you have never heard of Kunshan, which many people haven't, it is located right between Suzhou and Shanghai. Kunshan itself is considered to be a small city by Chinese standards, and I use air quotes because it's still about 2 million people. So, you know, with what we're used to in the US, it's still a pretty large city. And it's only about 20 minutes via high-speed rail from Suzhou, which is about the population of New York City, and Shanghai, which is, of course, one of the biggest cities in the world. So our students definitely take advantage of the location for internship opportunities, for field trips with their classes, for travel, exploring nightlife in Shanghai. There's all sorts of cool things to do in the area. So Duke really felt like to solve some of these big global issues like economic issues, environmental issues, global health, things like that, students needed a truly international education. So this is a really collaborative experience between Duke University and Wuhan University in China, and our students come from all over the world. We currently have over 60 nationalities represented, and we're a pretty new institution. We just opened in 2013 with graduate programs, but we actually just have our first senior class this year. So we've only had undergrads for the last 4 years. So I think that number is pretty impressive, and every year the representation increases. In opening up this new joint venture institution, Duke really wanted to kind of reinvent the traditional notion of what it means to be a liberal arts and sciences institution. Two things that come in mind with this like reinvention of sorts is creating a very experiential educational atmosphere and with a really interdisciplinary curriculum. And I'm sure if you've gone to any information sessions at liberal arts schools, you've probably heard a lot about interdisciplinary study and curriculum. But we've really tried to, I guess, one-up that in a way by having all of our majors be blended disciplines. So you choose both a major and a disciplinary track, and I'll go into that a little bit more on a later slide. And we do have 3 distinct academic divisions, so arts and humanities, social sciences, and natural sciences. But no matter what you end up majoring in, you'll take classes in all of these areas. And even some of our core curriculum courses are team taught by faculty members from different academic divisions. The experiential component comes into play with our schedule. So we do have a 4+1 academic week. And what we mean by that is that we just have classes Monday through Thursday. So Fridays are intentionally set aside for that co-curricular education. So these are going to be the days that are set aside for research with a faculty member or field trips with your classes. Maybe you're into volunteering on Fridays. There's all sorts of ways to utilize that. Our Career Center also brings students into Shanghai and Suzhou on Fridays for what we call career track. So it's a great opportunity to learn about international business, no matter what you're majoring in, just how business takes place in a very international city like Shanghai, where, you know, there's companies owned by citizens of all over the world. So just a lot of cool opportunities. And many of the companies that you may visit may also be in your home country too. So for example, one of the visits they did was to Disney Shanghai. So I'm sure, I saw a lot of Florida people, so I'm sure all of you are familiar with Disney. So just a lot of really cool opportunities like that. And we've also made a pretty innovative semester schedule too. So it's kind of a hybrid between the US academic calendar and the Chinese academic calendar. So we do go August to December with a winter break and then come back from January to May for that second semester. But each semester is split into 2 7-week sessions. So you're only taking about 2 to 3 classes at a time. Yes, it is a little bit more intensive because you're essentially taking a semester course and cramming it into 7 weeks, but you're not balancing quite as many of those courses. And you do have plenty of breaks throughout the year. You have the winter break, but also a lot of like week-long holidays. So a few different big Chinese holidays, as well as like just extended weekends. And our students definitely take advantage of those longer breaks to travel around Asia and travel around China as well. So these are our majors. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because all this information is on our website, but just to kind of give you an overview, the underlined words are the actual major titles, and the hollow bullet points underneath are the individual disciplinary tracks within those majors. Students don't declare a major till the end of their sophomore year, so there's plenty of time to take exploratory courses and figure out what you really want to major in. And there's also plenty of room in your schedule because about 1/3 of your courses are going to be electives. So maybe you're interested in going to medical school later on, but also really want to take some classes in, I don't know, political science or something like that. There's plenty of opportunity for you to be able to do that and combine those interests. I did mention that our campus was just opened in 2013, so it is a brand new campus. We've kind of modeled it as a liberal arts style, like US institution, but in China. So it has a lot of really cool facilities. Some things that I like to point out are the innovation building, which has state-of-the-art lab facilities, both teaching and research labs and artificial intelligence labs. We have a global health research center. We have a brand new sports center that's opening next summer. And all of our housing is brand new too, since it was basically built in the last decade, and you will have housing all 4 years at DKU. We have over 60 student organizations currently that range from club sports to Model UN, to an LGBT group, to art club, robotics club, all sorts of things like that. And then there's a lot of, trailblazing students on our campus too. So if there's something that's missing and you want to start a new organization, by all means, you are encouraged to do that, and we'll help you with the resources that you need to do that. Okay, so we are on the Common App. It is a free application. And all students who apply are automatically considered for scholarships and, for merit-based scholarships. You do need to submit your CSS profile to also be considered for need-based scholarships. And we do award up to full tuition. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. New last year was that we also have a checkbox option on the Duke application. So if you are already applying to Duke, you can just check the box to have your materials sent to us. It is still a completely separate admissions decision, so it won't have any impact on either of those applications if you apply through Duke or not. But do keep in mind that there is an application fee for the Duke application, and there is not if you apply directly through us. So definitely only apply to Duke if you actually want to be considered by Duke as well. We are test optional this year, and we have the 2 application rounds, early decision and regular decision. So if you have any questions about those, definitely let me know. And I appreciate you guys listening to me tonight and learning a little bit more about DKU. Like I mentioned earlier, definitely use, and I'll use the QR codes, but I'll also post the link in the chat to join some of our longer info sessions. But there's also tons of resources online in addition to our website. One that I specifically want to point out is our YouTube channel. So there's a lot of day in the life videos, and a lot of cool resources that were made by current students for you guys to learn more about us. So thank you so much. And I'll also put my email in the chat as well.
Okay, go ahead, Grace.
All right, sorry about that. My Zoom was frozen for a second. Joys of technology. Thank you so much, Emily, for that awesome presentation about DKU. You're going to hear from another Emily at this point. Her name is Emily Wolter. She's joining us bright and early from Monash University. She's the regional manager for North America. As a US native, Emily can speak on the international student experience and share what you should know about living and studying in Melbourne. Emily, we're excited to hear what it's like down under, so please take it away.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Grace. And thanks everyone for joining us tonight. If you are in the US, like Grace said, I am lucky. I'm in Friday already, and Friday's a great day. It is morning here in Melbourne where I am based, and I'm just here to explain to you a little bit about studying in Australia and a little bit about Monash University as well. So a lot of students will ask, are you talking about study abroad? Are you talking about full degrees that I can take? I specifically tend to cover the full degrees, so the whole bachelor degrees that you can take here at Monash University, but we also do have study abroad and exchange opportunities available as well. So that's just something to know as I go along tonight. So I thought it would be great to start with a little bit about Melbourne. So what is it like to study and to live over here? So I've been here in Australia for about 7 years now, in Melbourne for about 2 years. And this is the beautiful city of Melbourne that you can see here on your screen. So as I'm sure you're aware, we're one of Australia's largest cities. There's really something for everyone here in Melbourne, which I absolutely love. So I'm originally from Minnesota, so getting outside to the outdoors, making sure it's not just a concrete jungle is what is really important to me. So I love that we have beaches right near us, but we also have really beautiful parks around. We have the Great Ocean Road. If you've ever heard of the Great Ocean Road, that is here in Melbourne. It's about a 2 to 2.5 hour drive from where I'm located, right near the city. We're also really known for our sports here in Melbourne. So we're unofficially claimed the sports capital of the world, which I didn't even know until I lived here, but you can really feel it. So we have some really cool, interesting and different sports for you if you're coming from the US. So we do host AFL, Australian Football League, which is huge here in Melbourne. We have cricket, which you can see on the top of the screen. And we do really cool things, like we host the F1 Grand Prix every year, as well as the Australian Open. Now you'll also see on the screen, there's some markets and some really cool street art as well, which is just what Melbourne is known for, is a lot of our street art and our cafe culture. And we're also home to people from approximately 200 different countries. So a super diverse city, which I love, because as you're going around and you're meeting people, you can hear all the different accents and you know that there are people from your home country here in Melbourne. We have a total population of nearly 5 million people, and almost 40% of our residents were actually born overseas. And that breakdown, the 36-37%, that's really similar to what the Monash University breakdown is of international students versus Australian students as well. So you do get a really good mix of diversity. It's super easy to get around Melbourne as well. Our public transportation is something that we're known for, and it's also an extremely safe city. So students choose to get a car sometimes, but a lot of times they don't own a car. They're just able to take public transportation. Now, Monash at a glance. So we are actually Australia's largest university, and we have 4 major campuses here in Melbourne. Something I'd like to point out is we are not a city-based campus. We do have a campus that is based in the city, but in general, our larger campuses are based in the suburbs. So it's really important that you know that as a student looking to come overseas for your study experience, that what we have to offer is more of that on-campus experience because we are located in the suburbs, but you can still get here by public transportation. We're just not one of those campuses where you hop on the train to the middle of the city and you hop off onto campus. So we have campuses around the world as well, which is something that we love to point out because we do have different opportunities depending on what degree you're studying. You can be an international student with us, but then you can also study overseas as part of your degree. And you can study with one of our study abroad and exchange partners as well. So we cover 30 and actually over 30 countries now of study abroad and exchange partners. We have extremely high rankings. I don't love to get too into the rankings because I think there's so much else that we have to offer. But as a Monash student, you will graduate from one of the top 1% of universities in the world. US ranked us number 55 in the world for this year. And those numbers you can see on the screen there, we're about 84,000 students total with 54,000 undergraduates and almost 24,000 graduate or master's degree students. This slide here, this just tells you why you would choose Monash when you have so many amazing universities to choose from, both in the US or in Canada and overseas as well. So like I said, our rankings, we're in the top 100 in the world. We have a really great global presence and reputation. Now, something obviously you would ask as an international student is my degree qualified overseas or at home? And yes, they are internationally qualifying degrees. So that is something to note, that it will be recognized at home as well. Now, if you get into the more medicine or nursing or some of the more technical fields, You do need extra requirements to bring that degree back home, but in general, our degrees can be taken back home and be recognized. Something that's really cool too is, especially for me, because coming from the US, I had to take a year of generals, which I'm sure you're very used to. And a bachelor degree usually is 4 years long at home. Whereas here in Australia and at Monash, we have 3-year accredited courses. So we skip that whole year of generals that you would usually have to do at home, and you hop right into the degree. So here at Monash, you're actually applying for the degree you're interested in rather than the entire university, if that makes sense. So if I'm a student interested in engineering, I apply specifically for the Bachelor of Engineering. I don't apply to a faculty or school or the university. I apply for that actual degree. So like I said, it's a 3-year average bachelor degree duration. And then something we specialize in is offering a huge range of double degrees as well, which is something that is new to a lot of the students that I speak to. A double degree is where you're studying 2 different bachelor degrees, and the average duration of that is just 4 years long. So how we do that is you skip a lot of those non-compulsory or non-mandatory elective units in one of your degrees. You skip those and you take all the required classes in both degrees. So it means you graduate with 2 separate bachelor degrees in the time that someone in the US would graduate with just 1. We offer what we call work integrated learning. You'll be familiar with the word internship. That is what work integrated learning is for us. And most of our faculties will set that up on behalf of the students. And it's something that's really important to Monash, is that your degree includes that WIL, as we call it, to make sure you're actually putting your skills that you learn in the classroom to the workforce. We have incredible student support services for all of our students and a wonderful student experience too, being that we have such a great campus, on-campus vibe. We have over 100 clubs and societies to choose from, and basically just something for everyone. Lots of sports and an amazing sports field as well. Now, I'm not going to go into the specifics of each of our campus locations, but where you can see it says Melbourne in the north of the map there, that's the main bit of our city. It's what we would call the CBD or Central Business District. So we do have 2 smaller campuses there, but where you can see on the map, it says Melbourne East. I'll click on this one here because this is one of our campuses called Caulfield. So this is for our business and art students specifically. So this one's about 19,000 students that study at that campus. But then our largest campus here is the Clayton Campus. So it's kind of like we've built our own mini city in the suburbs. So it's home to almost 40,000 students and 8,000 staff. And much like Emily said before, our presentation also has those QR scans. So if you do want to see more about the campuses and get a student-led walkthrough, you can scan just there on the QR code. But this is our Clayton campus. So this is where most of our students will be studying, especially at the undergraduate level. And this is also where a lot of our on-campus housing, so we call it accommodation, but you would call it dorms. That's where those are located as well. It's something that I love because I can't think of anything worse than sharing a room with someone when I'm studying. We always have separate rooms here at Australian campuses. It's just not the norm to have shared bedrooms. So if that's something you might have been concerned or a little bit unsure about, I love that personally. I know as a student, I would love to have, and I did as an international student, love to have my own space. Now, these are our 10 different faculties. Of the Australian universities, we have the most program options. So there really is something for everyone, I find. The only programs that someone might come to me and ask for are things like dentistry and vet science, so veterinarian science, that we do not offer. Otherwise, I do find that we offer basically anything that a student might be interested in. Now, something that's really different here in Australia right now, we're entering into obviously your guys' fall, but we're now entering into the warmer months. So we're going into spring, and our semesters actually start, our first semester starts in February and our second semester starts in July. So if your program that you're interested in starts in February or July, for example, you can choose either semester that you want to start. We have really clear minimum entry requirements. We don't actually look at extracurriculars here at Monash. So it's all based on your academics and making sure that you have the classes and the scores in your university entrance exams. So your ACT, SIT, or your AP exams to make sure that you get into the course. We will not actually look at extracurriculars. So that's something to note as well. And something I always like to say from an international university perspective is if you're not getting into that university at home or at your first choice universities, It is also really important that you look internationally as well, because internationally we have different entry requirements. So you will find our systems work quite differently than the US system. So there usually is an option for you at another university. And that's just something that I like to advise students, that sometimes your home counselors won't necessarily know the entry requirements for, say, a university in Australia or in China. But if you just have a look, or if you speak to someone like myself, we can help you determine if you do have those entry requirements for our university. That is it for me. You can scan that QR scan once again. If you're not a student from North America, for example, if we've captured anyone else here, you can scan there. We have a regional manager for everyone. Otherwise, my contact details are at the top as well. And that's all for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Emily. That was fantastic. Hope you have a wonderful day. I know it's very early for you. Next up, our next panelist is Mr. Ibrahim Nasher. He serves as the program coordinator for all of the pre-college scholars programs, virtual, residential, and commuter, offered through the Division of Summer Sessions, Study Abroad, and Lifelong Learning at UC Berkeley. He manages the life cycle of each incoming student, starting with admissions and recruitment, all the way to program completion. In addition to supporting students, Ebrahim also works with parents, legal guardians, and high school or private counselors to help address any questions or concerns. Ebrahim, the floor is yours to tell us about UC Berkeley Summer Sessions and Study Abroad.
Thank you so much, Grace. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Greetings, folks. I hope you're able to see my screen at this time. I'm very excited to come to you all the way from Berkeley, California. Before I jump into my presentation, I'd like to begin by just expressing my gratitude for being invited on this wonderful panel. It's awesome to just hear from the other speakers in other universities to see what they're doing and learn about their unique offerings. I hope I'm going to be able to build on that and give you some interesting perspective if you are thinking about UC Berkeley or California in general. So in this presentation, I'm going to be specifically talking about the program called the Pre-College Scholars Programs. And the Pre-College Scholar Program is an incredible and a unique opportunity for current rising juniors and rising seniors who might be interested in taking advantage of our summer opportunities at UC Berkeley. So everything I'm going to be speaking to is going to be specific to summer 2022. Our program lives within the Division of Summer Sessions, as noted by Grace. And so this is one important piece I would like to highlight at this time, because I am not necessarily coming at you from the admissions office. My title, as you can see on the screen, is a program coordinator. And so because I'm not necessarily an admissions officer, if you have questions about admissions to UC Berkeley, I'm going to try my best to address those later. I'm not necessarily going to be able to go in a lot of depth there, but can definitely point you into the right direction or the resources. So as noted, my name is Ibrahim Nasher and my pronouns are he, him, his. And as a program coordinator, I basically work with wonderful folks like yourself who might be interested in learning more about UC Berkeley. Since I'm not necessarily going to be talking about admissions today, I'm going to be highlighting a very interesting and a unique program that would be providing you a more in-depth perspective rather than a one-dimensional flat conversation that you might have at this time with an admissions counselor from UC Berkeley. How? The program that we will be talking about today, or we're going to be exploring together today, is going to give you an actual insider perspective by having you come to UC Berkeley and see for yourself what does it mean to be a student at Cal. So in terms of our agenda, I'm going to give you the benefits of the program, the Pre-College Scholars Program that is, and then tell you more about the different tracks that we have. And then just important considerations in terms of dates and admissions. And I'm going to wrap up basically with how you can stay in touch with me if you want to learn more about what we do here at Cal. So if this sounds good to you, let's go ahead and dive in. So we know that you are at a point in your life at this time where you're considering what institution you want to call home after you finish high school. That's going to be 4 to 5 years of your lifetime. That's a big chunk of time and investment that we want to make sure that you're thinking about very carefully. So you can explore all sorts of institutions right now by talking to admissions counselor, but as I said, or counselors, but as I said, it would be helpful for you to be able to get a taste of what it means to be in an actual institution you might be considering as a destination in the future. So our program enables you to come to UC Berkeley and gain a glimpse of what it means to study at what some rankings would be considering Cal the #1 public university, not only in the country, but the whole world. And so how do we do that? We don't necessarily work with seasonal instructors or bring in seasonal staff to work with you in the summer. What we actually do is we plug you into the classroom experience or the campus on UC Berkeley. And we do that by having you study alongside UC Berkeley matriculated students in classes taught by UC Berkeley faculty. We have several tracks that you can take advantage of. All the tracks that enable you to earn credit, we call them credit-bearing tracks, will allow you to finish the program, get an actual taste of what it means to be a student at Cal, as I said earlier, and at the same time, walk away with actual college credits that you can invest in the future once you decide on where you want to go, be it UC Berkeley, another UC, or any university in the world. So the classes that you're going to be taking with us are actually going to be transferable units or credits that you're going to take anywhere you go. That way, when you start as a freshman in any institution that you choose to go to, you'll be able to build on what you've already earned at Cal. Some students decide to basically pursue degree requirements, major requirements. Some folks might be working on their breadth requirements. Some folks might be actually even looking at prerequisites that they know they want to get out of their way before going forward with whatever majors that they want to study. So basically, you're investing into your future undergraduate degree at this time while you're still a high school student. The other thing to keep in mind is that you're going to be studying with UC Berkeley faculty, and that's one of the main attractors that bring in a lot of folks from different parts of the world to come to Cal. We're pretty known for the caliber of our faculty, whether we are talking about Nobel laureates, whether we're talking about researchers and pioneers and trailblazers in their different and respective fields. You're going to be able to interact with those directly while studying at Cal. And if you're lucky, you might even walk away with a letter of recommendation from an instructor that you have been dreaming to study with. So all of that would be available to you and more in the summer. Our programs are also intentional about allowing students to not only gain everything that you might be able to tap into in terms of the classroom experience, but also what could happen outside of the classroom. Because as you remember, we are intentional about having you walk away with what it means to study at Cal. And a lot of it is what happens outside of the classroom. UC Berkeley students are known to be pioneers in terms of change making and engaging in transformative processes by translating what they're learning inside the classroom, outside of the classroom. So you're going to get a taste of that as well. We provide a lot of co-curricular, extracurricular programming that you can take advantage of. And in addition to that, one of the things that I'd like to highlight every single time I give this presentation is the fact that we build a workshop series to help students amp up their applications. Basically, we bring in an alumna of UC Berkeley who's an admissions specialist to help you build a really strong application, regardless of what future university that you might be interested in applying to. So this takes place in addition to all the classes that you're taking at the same time. And finally, our program attracts hundreds of high school students. Thousands of applications actually every summer come to us, and then we select hundreds of students. And then from there, we work with all of those students. So you're bound to find yourself not only expanding your intellectual horizon by studying with UC Berkeley students and bright, wonderful high school students like yourself coming from different parts of the world, but also expanding your social and cultural horizons, because we attract students from different parts of the world. We attract students, obviously, from different parts of California, and then from different parts of the country. It's very important for me to note that our program is not a pipeline to admissions to UC Berkeley. UC Berkeley is a very competitive institution to get to. So we try to be very fair in terms of the review and the admissions process when we receive applications from folks from different parts of the world. And so what the program is going to enable you is essentially, as I said, a glimpse or an insider perspective to help you better understand whether UC Berkeley is a good fit for you. And that obviously would help you craft a strong application that is catered to the criteria that we have as far as, the admissions process goes. The different tracks that we offer are four. The residential, the commuter, and the virtual tracks are all for credit, meaning those are tracks that would enable you to walk away with college credit that you will transfer later to whatever institution that you go to. And one thing to keep in mind is we have a non-credit track for folks who are not necessarily interested in taking actual UC Berkeley classes. So if you do the residential, commuter, virtual tracks, you're going to be studying with UC Berkeley matriculated students and visiting scholars from different parts of the world. The residential is for folks who are interested in a fully immersive experience by living on campus. So you get room and board, a meal plan, you live with our residential staff, and so on and so forth. The commuter is for folks who live or reside in the Bay Area or might be in the Bay Area for the summer and they simply want to come, take their classes, and just simply go home from there. But they will still have access to all sorts of campus resources that we provide full access to throughout the summer. And the virtual is for folks who don't necessarily find themselves interested in coming and studying in person, but they would still want to take advantage of our classes. So you can engage in the program from the comfort of your own home, and we will be working with you to provide you with all the resources that you're going to need virtually that otherwise would have been available to you in person. And finally, the non-credit track is for folks who are interested in coming for an immersive experience, but only for 2 weeks because they might be busy, they might have other commitments throughout the summer. So we partner with our Haas School of Business, which is considered to be one of the best in not only the country, but the whole world. And we are developing, as I'm speaking to you right now, a non-credit track that's going to be focused on what it means to be a change maker. And that's going to be available starting summer 2022. If you're curious about the dates, I'm not going to be able to read all the dates, but I'm going to be more than happy to provide you with those slides if you email me, just so that you're able to see what's available to you based on your schedule and what's happening in the upcoming summer for you. But maybe something to note is that the commuter and the virtual tracks give you more options in terms of when you can take classes. The residential and the non-credit tracks are more limited just because you're going to be part of a student cohort that's going to be living on campus. So we have to be pretty intentional about the dates to make sure that you're going to be having a smooth transition in and out of the program. And then just in case all of this is sounding good to you and you're interested in exploring this further, just keep in mind that in terms of eligibility, these programs or tracks are open to all sorts of students from anywhere in the world, as long as they're 16 years of age by June 19th, 2022. We're very, very intentional about this date. So there is no room for a negotiation there. If you're not 16 at this time, then you can apply the following year. You would have been expected to have completed 2 years of high school and have a minimum of 3.0 as far as GPA goes. If you're interested about the classes that the students take, students have actually access to more than 300 options. You can study whatever really you want to study. But if it's helpful for us to narrow it down a little bit for you, you can see under top classes, some of the common coursework that we see students take advantage of every summer. But honestly, the sky's the limit in terms of what you want to study. In terms of size, this past summer, we were nearing 1,000 students. So as I said, the program attracts a lot of students coming from different spaces. And we hope that you're going to be part of this cohort this upcoming summer. And finally, to make sure that you're taking classes with UC Berkeley that are not going to overwhelm you and that will empower you moving forward, we ask that you limit your coursework to what we call lower division, which basically means freshman level classes, so that you're able to challenge and push yourself, but at the same time, not overwhelm yourself and walk away with a grade that is really reflective of all the time and energy and effort that you have invested in the summer. If you're interested in doing only research or you're interested in internships, probably our program would not be a good fit for you. But if you're curious to learn more about that, just email me and I'm more than happy to give you more information about other opportunities that you can explore at UC Berkeley when it comes down to research and internships. And finally, if you just want to get a taste of what classes are offered at UC Berkeley, just go to classes.berkeley.edu and look them up. And as I said, the idea here is that you're going to be treated like a UC Berkeley student, so you can definitely see what's available and from there start figuring out what you may want to explore with us this upcoming summer. Finally, to stay in touch, you can email me at precollege@berkeley.edu. Our Instagram handle is here. And then our website, which will be updated by the end of the year, precollege.berkeley.edu, is definitely a great resource. If you have any questions about admissions, I'm just including helpful links here for your reference. all the way from going to a page that would help you connect with a representative in your region to walk you through specific, questions, concerns, considerations that might be applicable to your state or where you are in the world, all the way to being able to attend virtual presentations organized by the admissions office and address specific questions you may have at this time. This is everything that I have for you. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and pass the baton back to Grace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. That was fantastic information. Our final presenter tonight, last but certainly not least, Miss Maddie Curry is a proud graduate of the University of Wyoming College of Business, where she graduated with dual degrees in marketing and management. She currently works at her alma mater as part of the College of Business Student Success Team, where she is able to tie her passion for enrollment management together with her love for integrated marketing communication and connect with students each day during their college decision process. With other members of our team, she works toward ensuring that every student who walks into the College of Business Student Success Center's doors is receiving support before, during, and after their time as a business student. Maddie's favorite part about her role is helping students explore everything that Wyoming has to offer and how a degree in business will positively impact their future. Go Pokes! Maddie, take it away.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Grace. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so I'm just going to kick it off. We've heard from some really great folks this evening, so I'm excited to get the chance to chat a little bit about the University of Wyoming. So just to kind of give an overview of UW in general, the University of Wyoming was founded in 1886 and we're located in Laramie, Wyoming. We're actually the only four-year university in the whole state, and we're actually one of the most heavily funded land grant institutions in the US. What this means is that students at our school have access to increased funding sources through scholarship opportunities, research funding, and more. With nationally recognized faculty, top-ranked academics, and world-class facilities, students at UW are prepared to meet the standards of industry in order to be successful in their future careers. UW has the largest study abroad scholarship endowment of any US four-year public land grant university. And every year we have students who are studying abroad in over 50 countries, 400 domestic and international sites. And then once they come back on campus, students actually have the opportunity to get involved in over 250 student organizations, intramural sports, religious organizations, and more. After a student's time with us, they actually have the opportunity to stay connected with us through a really robust alumni network. And what's really exciting is we're actually consistently ranked as one of the top small schools in America. As it relates to the College of Business specifically, we actually make up about 10 to 11% of all UW students. We have about a student faculty ratio of 22 to 1, so 22 students for every one faculty, average class size of about 32, and we actually have what's called Aacsb Accreditation. So this stands for Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business, and this can kind of be thought of as a quality assurance standard. So it's the same accreditation as many other top business schools, guaranteeing that while students are at one of the lowest tuition schools in the country, the quality of instruction is equal to that of larger schools. And what also sets us apart here is, besides being one of the lowest resident and non-resident tuition rates, there's a large pool of scholarship funding, endowment support, and a focus of student success services. So a little bit more on that focus of student success. Our focus here really is on collaboration versus a cutthroat competition model. So our courses at our College of Business, you'll find, are taught by industry experts. So you won't find our classes taught by grad students who've never been out in the industry. So this is really ensuring that our courses are taught by folks who really have those great real world examples in their field that they're teaching. The endowment support that I mentioned in my last slide really feeds into making sure that we have really great high-tech facilities that are always being updated to meet the needs of students. And really, when it comes down to it, everything we're doing is leading toward the success of our students. A little bit more on our Student Success Center at the College of Business. We have it's called our Peter M. and Paula Green Johnson Student Success Center. And this is really what I consider a hub of holistic student experience here at UW. So this center is here to support students from before, during, and after their time here with us. We have 3 different units. So enrollment management focuses a lot on working with incoming students and getting connected with, getting introduced to programs, doing campus or virtual visits through that application support process, and then feeding students into the next steps that they need to be successful. When it comes down to academic advising, students are first connected with their degree-specific advisor during student orientation. And during their time here, our advisors can help our students with long-term planning, study abroad exploration, and then also getting connected with any other resources a student might need across campus. The last unit within our within our Student Success Center is career services. And so this is an area that students have direct access to during their entire time with us. So they can get support with career coaching, resume writing, networking opportunities, and of course, internship and career fairs. A big theme that you'll find at the University of Wyoming and the College of Business in general is a large focus on experiential learning. So the best way I like to describe experiential learning is learning by doing. You know, students at our College of Business are taking part in real world relevant experiences that are going to ultimately prepare them for their future careers. Some of the examples of experiential learning that students will interact with at our college, they'll focus on industry visits with faculty members, consulting projects with real businesses on the local, regional, and national levels. They'll be able to compete through case competitions such as our Elbogan $50,000 entrepreneurship competition, which allows students to come together and ultimately present a proposed business plan and compete up for $50,000 in startup funds. Students can also gain an international perspective through study abroad activities, where they'll learn how to solve global challenges and how to develop business knowledge on an international level. Students can also get involved. As I mentioned, we have more than 250 student organizations on our campus, and quite a few of those are housed right within our College of Business. We have organizations that might be general business all the way down to degree-specific or subject-specific courses. On top of that, students can get involved in student government, intramural sports, fraternity and sorority life, and ultimately, whichever direction a student ends up going, they'll be able to connect with folks with similar interests to really build on those networking communication goals altogether. What's really great about our College of Business is we offer a 4-year cohort modeled business scholars program for high achieving students. This is an application-based program that takes a holistic view at academically focused students for determining admittance to the program. And during this program, students get additional support to professional and personal development, exclusive mentorship and executive speaker series, as well as the opportunity to travel domestically and internationally to kind of get an idea of, how does business work in other parts of the country? How does it work on an international level? So for more information on this program, just with how to apply or just more details on each individual year of the program, this QR code on the screen is a really great spot for that. Specific to our programs, so the College of Business offers quite a few different programs for students specifically interested in business. So you can see on the screen here, accounting, business economics, where we offer tracks in policy or quantitative economics, entrepreneurship, finance, management of human resources, marketing, and professional sales. And we're also pretty unique at our College of Business, where we allow students to come in as business undeclared. So this really allows students the opportunity to dip their toes in quite a few different subjects before fully committing to a degree area. And that would be at the beginning of their third year of school. In addition to these majors, we also offer minors in banking and financial services, blockchain, data analytics, economics, entrepreneurship for non-business students, hospitality, business management, international business, leadership, professional and technical selling, as well as real estate. So just as a little bit of an overview about the admissions process at UW, as well as the cost of attendance. Freshmen at UW, we ask for a 3.0 GPA, as well as a 21 on the ACT or 1060 on the SAT. The College of Business at UW does not require a separate application. Students can apply to the university, and then on their application, they just simply say, I want to be a business student, and they'll be admitted into the College of Business. The cost of attendance, this image on the screen just has a breakdown for per academic year. So as I mentioned earlier, we have one of the lowest non-resident and resident tuition rates in the country, as well as a really robust scholarship program, which this QR code on the screen will take you to. That is just kind of an overview of the College of Business. My information is up on the screen here, and I can put a couple links in the chat here, and I'm happy to answer any questions as we move into that Q&A portion.
Thank you so much, Maddie. That was a fantastic presentation. At this time, I'm going to ask you all of our attendees to please type your questions in the Q&A window. At this time, we're going to move into a period of Q&A with all of our presenters from this evening. So now is the time to ask your questions. I believe we have some questions already in the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get started. Our first one is for Mr. Ebrahim about UC Berkeley. Michaela, I think you might have answered her questions in the Q&A, but they're asking, what all do you offer for seniors at UC Berkeley? For instance, scholarships, tours, fee waivers, etc. What might you be offering for seniors in the pre-college program?
Thank you, Grace. And I was trying to answer as many questions as I could so that folks just kind of have a sense of where we are with certain things, but happy to elaborate further. In terms of certain advantages that you could explore or things that we are willing to provide to you, let me start with the Pre-College Scholars Program and then talk about UC Berkeley just in general. In terms of the Pre-College Scholar Program, there is an application fee. If you want to explore the possibility of waiving that, just shoot us an email. We'll be more than happy to explore that. For us, inclusion and diversity are very, very important just in general. And so if there are any resources or any opportunities, whether them being provided through the institution itself or even externally, we'll do our best to point you in the right direction. Just in terms of scholarships, we've definitely had students in the past who have been provided scholarships to be able to attend our different tracks. The fact that, however, we're coming out of a pandemic to return to in-person instruction and we're building a new non-credit track, it's very difficult for me to speak at this time to what is going to be concretely provided or whatever that might be tangible at this point. We will have a better sense of what that could look like towards the end of the year. So please do reach out to us. I have shared my email. I'm going to share it one more time in the chat for everyone. And then depending on where you are, what your needs are, we could definitely explore that further. In terms of UC Berkeley in general, do connect with the admissions office. The same philosophy, the same priorities and values we're trying to commit to as a collective within summer sessions apply to the admissions office. And I'm sure they're going to be able to also point you to resources and important places that you may want to think about, consider before moving forward with the application process. But our role or our job really is to make sure that if you are interested, if your heart is in this place, we will do everything that we can to empower you to be able to explore it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Fantastic, comprehensive answer. We have some questions regarding law programs at your various institutions. I'm wondering if each of you could touch on what you might have at your institutions for pre-law or law programs offered for students. We have a couple questions regarding that. So let's start with Emily Grube, since we haven't heard from you in a while.
Okay. Yeah, so one cool thing about law school is that you can really major in anything as an undergrad. Now Duke does have a law program if you're interested in looking at that down the road. We do not have a law school, but we do have a lot of students that are in the pre-law track. We have academic advisors that work specifically with students who are interested in law school. As I mentioned earlier, there's not really like a set group of majors that you have to do, but some that are more popular for law would include our ethics and leadership major. We have political economy, as well as institutions and governance that are more like public policy and political science. And then depending on what type of law you want to go into, there's environmental law, there's medical practicing and things like that. So there's just a lot of flexibility when it comes to pre-law. So I think that, if you want to have a I don't know, more in-depth conversation about that, I'm happy to schedule a meeting with you, and I can put you in touch also with students that are pre-law at DKU.
Thanks, Emily. On the other end of the spectrum, Emily from Monash. What does Monash have to offer for law?
Sure. So here at Monash, we have a 4-year law program. So we actually call, it's a little bit different than in the US. We would call our 4-year degrees honors degrees, because they do have that extra year onto the end, just because that's what qualifies you to be a lawyer here. So it's a 4-year law degree here at Monash. And then we also have things like the JD program and things, if you do a different degree overseas in your undergrad, we also have those post-grad options as well. So yeah, it takes 4 years to become a lawyer here.
Nice. Maddie, what does UIO have for law? I know you're specifically representing the College of Business, but if you have anything, that would be appreciated.
So the university does offer a pre-law minor that students can tack on to any program, regardless of what their undergraduate degree is. So if a student decides to do business, they could still tack on that pre-law minor. We'll sometimes see students who will do their undergrad in criminal justice or political science or economics. And we do have a full law school here at the university as well. If those on this webinar tonight are looking for more information about our law program at UW, please feel free to email me, and I'm happy to get you connected with whoever that representative might be.
And that leaves UC Berkeley.
Thank you, Grace. So there are many things that I can say about that. One fun fact about UC Berkeley is the fact that freedom of speech as a movement that shapes who we are collectively as a country started on campus at UC Berkeley with students protesting. So in many ways, UC Berkeley reflects the politics of the Bay Area, the radical movements that have been taking place and shaping who we are collectively. UC Berkeley itself has an undergraduate basically degree or a major in legal studies that prepares you basically to pursue law. Our law school is considered to be one of the top 10 in the nation. And legal studies at UC Berkeley is more focused on engaging in critical dialogue with law and looking at the historical, social, cultural forces that have shaped law as we know it today. And how do we engage critically with that? So there is a lot of critical theory that goes into the process to help you understand and empower who you want to become as someone who's going to be involved in the law in the future, whether as a lawmaker or a lawyer.
Very cool. Thanks for those answers, guys. And another question for the group that I think is popular among students as they're preparing to go to school. What are the, Layla's asking, what are the average class sizes and sort of feel of the classes look at these universities and your programs? I think we can, we can go back the other direction and Ebrahim tell us, how do the class sizes look at UC Berkeley? I think for a large university, they might be large, but is that the case at UC Berkeley?
That is the case, yes. When Emily was talking about Monash, I was like, wow, I thought we were big, but I guess folks in Australia are much bigger, which is incredible. In terms of UC Berkeley, we serve on a given semester 40,000 students. So a pretty big school, at least within the standards of the Bay Area or here in California. Which basically means your classes are going to be big depending on the major that you're interested in and depending on your class. So a lot of public universities that serve a lot of students, you basically start taking intro classes that will have sizable amount of students. And then as you continue to climb up your degree, that number will decrease. However, we're very intentional about providing a personalized experience at UC Berkeley. So from the start, you can engage in freshman seminars that are smaller in size if you want to get a faculty quality type of interaction. There are also sorts of programs in terms of research that you can get involved with as early as your freshman basically year. And then we have what we call pathway programs that enable folks who are interested in getting more like a smaller liberal arts field type of experience. They can basically tap into that. And we do those programs by having you study in Berkeley or even abroad. So for example, we have a London program where you can travel with a small group of students and you start your first semester in London and then return to Berkeley. So I guess if there is one way to summarize all of this is depending on your interest, depending on what you want to experience, that would be available to you at Cal.
Very nice. And Maddie at UIO, is it the same case in the College of Business? Can you tell us about the sort of look and feel of those classes?
Absolutely. So at our College of Business, our average class size is about 32 students. Honestly, at UW in general, the largest class size you'd really ever be having is about 150 to 200 students. Within the College of Business, all of our freshmen, or actually all of our majors, regardless of what business degree you go into, we have a common core for our business students. So whether you're going into accounting or going into marketing, you're taking the same core business classes. So a lot of the time, our freshman, sophomore classes are going to be a little bit larger, but as I mentioned, the largest class a student would be taking is about 150 students. Because of our smaller class size, students are really getting really great personalized experiences with their professors. They're genuinely making connections. Their professors are understanding what their future goals are and are oftentimes able to connect them with those goals. A personal experience of myself, my very first class I ever walked into was macroeconomics, 150 people. My professor took the last 15 minutes of class to have us all come down to the front and took a picture of all of us holding a piece of paper with our names on it. Took pictures, came back to that second day of class and had 150 names memorized. And that's just not an experience, with some of those larger classes at some other schools, you might be a number in courses versus your professor knowing you by name, knowing directly what your goals are. And that's a theme you'll see through all of our programs at UW.
That's a professor with a great memory. That's fantastic. That's a really good anecdote though. Emily, Wolter, Monash, I think based on Ibrahim's comment, is very large. So how do those classes look?
Yeah, so we are very large. And it's always this question that students have is, will I just kind of get lost amongst all these students? I guess we run really similar to what Ibrahim and Maddie were saying as well. So some of our first year classes will be bigger, but they never get above 200 students as far as I'm aware. We haven't yet gotten above 200 students. But here in Australia, we do something different. So we actually have what we call lectures, which are like those bigger classes where your professor might be speaking to you or teaching. And then we have what we call labs or tutorials. So actually in a day, you'll have a lecture and then you'll have a lab or tutorial for each class. And what that means is you actually apply that learning that you had from that lecture, you apply that to small group learning, or you do a lot of, the more lab style stuff in the classroom, which I know is a really different setup than what we would do in the US. But as a student here, I loved that because it meant I could either watch the recording of the lecture before the lab or tutorial, or I could attend a live lecture. And then by the time I got to the lab, I was able to just ask questions and apply that learning. And those groups of students tend to be much smaller. So that classroom is a lot smaller. So it means you're anywhere from, I guess, 10 to 50 students. So it's a much smaller class size. So even though we do have really big numbers, we also have the staff. So you'll see we had about 18,000 academic staff that were working with us. That includes the online staff as well. So about 8,000 on campus professional and academic staff to support all of our students. So even though we are a large university, we have that staff to help support you so you don't get lost in the crowd.
Very nice. And Emily Grube, we'll conclude with you about Kunshan's class sizes.
Sure. Yeah, so we, on the flip side, are a very small institution, and as a new institution, we are growing as well, but even at full capacity, we'll only be about 2,000 students. Our student faculty ratio is about 7:1, so our average class size typically is around like 14 or 15, with the max being around 25. So very much a small classroom environment. And some of the class, I gave averages, but some are much smaller than that, especially when you get into more higher level courses.
Interesting. So we've got a good mix here on the panel tonight. And this question I'll throw out for any of you to feel free and jump in to answer. I know at least in the US, there's been a lot of confusion this admission season around SAT and ACT scores and the importance of those in admissions, especially given the COVID pandemic and how some institutions made them optional last year. Can you speak on how your institutions or what trends you're seeing as far as how important SAT and ACT scores really are now after the pandemic?
Sure, I'll go first. This will be on a case-by-case basis to, based on individual schools' policies. We are test optional, as is Duke, for fall 2022. What that means is that we have for us, it means that we've basically taken the test requirement completely out of the application. You can still submit a test score if you want, but it's going to be viewed as more of like a supplementary material. It's not going to be factored into your score or anything like that. And also, I'd encourage you to talk with the admissions counselors of the schools where you're applying if they are test optional. My view is that I'm here to advocate for the students, so I will happily discuss a test score with a student and tell them whether or not I think that they should submit it. But that's a personal choice. The vast majority of our students last year, and I think students across the US, did not submit scores when it was test optional. It significantly dropped. So again, that's up to you. But you're not going to be, at least from DKU's perspective, you're not going to be penalized for telling me your score and asking me. It's not like I can't unsee it or anything like that once you talk about it. So I'm happy to discuss that with you. These types of things, I know that there's a trend to kind of go more towards a permanent test optional structure at many institutions. Unfortunately, we haven't made that decision for the future, but I am hopeful that we'll be test optional beyond fall 2022, but unfortunately that decision has not been made yet. So let me know if you have questions. I know there's a lot of information thrown at you though.
Anyone else care to comment on that topic before we move on to the next question?
I'm happy to go. Oh, go ahead, Emily.
No, you.
Thank you. So I will just say very quickly, so UC Berkeley, I think it's very important to note this. UC Berkeley, in terms of the application process, we fall under the UC application system. So it's not a common app. I say that because we do not look at any standardized testing at this time. And this is a policy that we've adopted, not only as an institution, but as a whole wide system. And we're moving forward with that. So if you're applying to the UC system, don't worry about the test. Having said that, I know there are many amazing institutions, as you can see represented on the panel today, where that would be something that they may look at. So it is wise to consider the tests themselves, but as far as the UC system goes, this is not something that we think about or worry about at this time. And we're more interested in what you're doing outside of the classroom and who you are, especially as a leader, because we're very much interested in engaging in change and transformation as a community and a collective. So I think I'm going to leave it at that.
And I guess it's interesting because Monash is almost the exact opposite as far as what we look at for entry. And the best reason I can explain for that is that because we are such an international university, the standardized tests are welcome all around the world. So that's how we can assess, and we feel that it's the most fair to assess admissions by. So we actually don't look at extracurriculars at all, and we only look at your previous studies, so your high school classes that you've taken, any AP exams you've taken, and an SAT or an ACT. That being said, if you weren't able to take one of those standardized tests because of COVID, just like Emily was saying, we have different options for you, or we can have some leeway in that, just as long as we have that case-by-case reason that the student wasn't able to take the test. There are different options, but yeah, we do assess based on those scores and the classes specifically at Monash.
And for the University of Wyoming, for the 2021-22 year, so the semester that just started, we were test optional. Just, you know, there were some test site issues due to COVID with folks not being able to take their ACT or SAT. So they did waive test scores for this academic year. And I believe that we are still evaluating on whether or not we'll be continuing to do so moving forward. I think the university as a whole here in Wyoming is really great about doing holistic reviews for students. And, you know, during those holistic reviews, they kind of look at everything, you know, what were you involved in? Were there specific situations that may have led to you being unable to sit for an exam or anything like that? So I would say it's still being evaluated for this next year, but I'll be interested to see what our main admissions office chooses to do moving forward.
Nice. That's a very some varied answers there. It's interesting to me that Monash is so specific about those qualities. That makes sense though, for it being fair across the board. A specific question actually for you, Emily, about Monash. Can you explain more about the difference between the 3-year degree and how it compares to the traditional 4-year degrees here in the US? How that sort of looks as students come out of the 3-year degree to potential employers, you know, sort of a difference?
Yeah, definitely. So you'll be pleased to know most employers won't even realize it was only a 3-year degree rather than a 4, because it's a bachelor degree. You are qualified. You have an American bachelor degree is equivalent to an Australian bachelor degree. So it's the same. All you're doing is skipping that first year of general classes. So we don't require, for example, you know, I remember in my first year of university or college, we required, you know, comms class, or we required an entry level, for example, like sociology class. We don't require any of that because we assume that the students who are coming to Monash are of a certain level where they also kind of know what they want to study. So that's really important too, is that yes, you can change your degree as you go along, but I know in the US, a lot of times it's common to not really know in your first year what you want to study. So we tend to kind of pull those students who are quite sure of what they want to study, or they know around the degree they want to gain at the end of their qualification. But that's all we do, is we're just skipping your first year of generals. So your first year and every year beyond that will be specific to your degree and what you're interested in. And it's just more specialized for you. So it means you're not really wasting that. I remember back to some of my classes in the first year, and I think they were a waste of time and money for some of the things I was studying. So that's a good thing, is that you don't have to do that. But that being said, if you're someone who wants to kind of explore those classes and see what you might be interested in, that first year of generals might be really important to you as well. But we also have transfer students who might come after 2 years, then they might enter Monash University and finish up their degree. But in summary, an Australian bachelor degree is equivalent to an American bachelor degree. So you don't have to worry about you graduating and them going, it was only 3 years, how did you get away with that? And questioning how you did it in just 3 rather than 4.
Very nice. That's puts our minds at ease. I think we can just go rapid fire here with this question. Do you have classes online? Is it available to get your full degree online, or some classes? How does that work at your institutions? We'll start with Ibrahim about UC Berkeley.
That's a great question. We at this time are giving basically the students the option to take classes online if they want to because of COVID. Having said that, Berkeley, for the most part, as far as the undergraduate student experience, has been very intentional about students being able to come to campus and really engage in all sorts of opportunities and resources that are available to the student community. So we haven't necessarily had programs on the undergraduate level that are online, but there are things that you can explore in that realm if you're looking at graduate programs. But as far as undergraduate right now, you can, because of COVID, take online classes for a whole semester, but I'm imagining that's going to change once things continue to change and evolve, hopefully in the direction that we all want.
Perfect. Maddie, UYO College of Business, anything online?
Yeah, I would actually echo what Ibrahim said with, UW is very intentional, at least our College of Business is very intentional trying to have students also take advantage of some of those in-person opportunities and experiences. So the majority of our courses are full on-campus degrees. Of course, with COVID, there are some classes that would normally be on campus that are being taught online currently. And it's possible they might evaluate a little bit more of that moving forward. However, we recognize that there are always situations that students might find themselves in. We might have some place-bound learners that have families and might not be able to come to campus. We might have folks who, have started their careers and have decided they want to finish up a degree that they've started earlier on. So we do offer currently 2 degree completion programs in accounting and management of human resources. And then starting in fall 2022, we'll also begin offering a completion program in marketing online. And these courses, though, our online completion programs do have prerequisites. So students, earlier on, I think I mentioned all of our business students have core business classes that they need to accomplish before moving into their degree specific courses. And those classes are required as prerequisites before students can complete that online program. However, we work really well with the different community colleges in the state of Wyoming, as well as community colleges in other states, on making sure that students have the opportunity to finish those prereqs before transferring them in.
Great. Emily Grube, Kunshan.
Typically, like what the other presenters said, we don't typically have online courses, but because we do have students from all over the world and many of whom weren't able to return to China post-pandemic yet, we have made all of our classes also available online, both asynchronously and live if you wanted to attend. But I assume, and of course, like this is a new world after the pandemic, but I assume that eventually we will not be having online courses once everyone is able to safely be on the same campus again.
Right, and that leaves you, Emily.
I guess something to consider if you're looking at an international university, to get an international student visa here in Australia, and I imagine it's the same for other countries, you actually have to study on campus. So there isn't an option to have a student visa and study your program online. So that is something to consider if you're someone who's looking for an online degree, that's not actually under our visa requirements. That's not actually what we can offer to you. That being said, no one can enter the country right now, right? So all the documents look the same as though you are studying on campus. So as far as the government is concerned, there's a worldwide understanding, borders aren't open, so you can't physically be in the country. However, when borders do open, the expectation is that there will be kind of, I guess, a cooling off period. So we understand not everyone's going to hop on a plane tomorrow and be here. But when you can, we do expect for students to come back to campus, because Monash is a 90%, I guess I would say, on-campus university. We only have very limited programs that do offer online classes. But I guess to the other point there is that a lot of our lectures are recorded. So even though someone might go, so do I have to be on campus all the time at Monash? It doesn't necessarily mean that, but it does mean that every class is offered on campus. So although there will be online items that you can view, for example, or recordings you can view, in general, it's always on campus for us.
All right, getting into some campus life questions here. This seems to be another popular question among students going into college for their first year. In your institutions, are first years required to stay on campus? I know that this also may have changed because of COVID, but if you can tell us a little bit about the housing rules or limitations on your campuses for first year specifically, or if any other years are required to stay on the campus themselves. We'll start with you, Emily, about Monash again. That seems to be pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, the international students are not required to be there.
That's right. Yeah. And even in a normal year, you don't have to live on campus if you don't want to, but you can any year. Something about Monash, though, that I like to tell students is our accommodation fills up really quickly because there are quite a few students, especially in their first year, who do want to study or stay on campus. But you can apply as soon as you think, I might want to go to Monash for my degree, you can apply for campus then. So you don't have to actually apply for a program to apply for housing, but it's never a requirement to live on campus. There are lots of students that meet people as soon as they get here and they choose to live in like a shared house, we would call it, or an apartment. And I saw that there was a question as well about roommates. Like I said before, you don't actually have to share a room with anyone. So we do also have what we would call studio apartments. So we have single bedroom dorms for you to choose from as well. So you don't have to worry so much about those. I think they said unruly roommates. You don't have to worry so much about those here.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Emily, Grube, it must be the same situation with Duke Kunshan. You can't be requiring people to be on campus just yet, right?
Yeah, so and Ibrahim kind of mentioned this in the chat as well. If they are coming to Duke as an international student to get the visa, you do have to live on campus. But if you're, obviously taking virtual classes, you don't need to do that. But typically you are required to live on campus all 4 years at DKU, again, in normal times, whenever we head back to that. But it is really nice housing as well. And it's, kind of takes the challenge of finding housing in a foreign country when you're coming over there. All international students do have a Chinese roommate their freshman year. So, we kind of integrate students that way. And plus on your hall, you're going to have students from all around the world. Like I mentioned earlier, 60+ nationalities represented currently. So a very diverse group of students. And then just to also answer the question about like the unruly roommates and things like that, we do have like the same as in the US, we have resident advisors and like a whole residence life department that works with you to pair you up with roommates that hopefully will be a good match. You do a pretty extensive survey based on like what you're looking for in a roommate, what your living style is like, those kind of things. But there's also a lot of resources on campus to help manage issues should they arise.
Fantastic, Maddie.
So at UW, we do require first-year students to live in our residence halls. Studies have shown that students who live in those residence halls and are with those that are similar to them are actually able to, make that transition to college more successful for them. So students that first year will live in the residence hall and have the opportunity to live in, different room types. They can live with a roommate, they can live in a single room. They can live on specific floors. So we have what are called freshman interest groups at UW. So students, say you're interested in business, you can live on our College of Business specific FIG floor. If you're interested in the outdoors, we have women only floors, men only floors, so that you can live with folks that have similar interests as you. Students can also, if you're coming to Wyoming with a friend, you can choose to room together with that friend, or, to try to combat any issues you might have with a roommate with that random selection. There are surveys kind of that are filled out that, as you're being randomly selected to live with somebody else, they'll take habits into consideration. What are your study habits going to look like? Are you a night owl? Are you an early bird? Do you like things to be spotless? Are you a little messy? To make sure that you're being paired with folks who might have similar habits, that there won't be any headbutting. Then of course, when you come, you do work with your RA to make a roommate contract to make sure that you both understand what the expectations are of living with one another. After freshman year, students are able to move off campus, but we do also offer on-campus apartments. Students can either choose to remain in the residence halls, move to our on-campus apartment, and kind of do the same thing there, be randomly put with other folks who are also living in on-campus housing, or move in together with some friends.
Nice. And Ibrahim, I saw the comment that you made about on-campus housing, but if you could just elaborate a bit on that.
Yeah, I can definitely say a lot of things about UC Berkeley. So we're a large university in the heart of downtown as far as Berkeley goes. So it's very important for us that folks are able to live close to the campus and able to take advantage, as I said, of everything that's happening on campus. So the great thing about living in a place where there is a lot of hassle and bustle, so many things that are happening around you, is that there are different options you can take advantage of. So we pride ourselves for the fact that we have themed housing. So you can choose all sorts of different options, all the way from how you identify in relation to your gender expression and sexuality, all the way to your passions and interests, and being able to live with other folks who are intentional about what is it that they care about. Together, we do a lot of things just beyond being able to share or cohabitate a common space. And I noted earlier that if you're not necessarily interested in starting your very first semester on campus at Cal, you can travel. We do have also other unique programs where you can start in Oakland, which is not necessarily very far from UC Berkeley. There are so many options. Basically, this is to say that there are things that you can tap into depending on what you're interested in. And we're pretty good at communicating all of these options as you're navigating the application process and beyond. Yeah, and then maybe the last thing that I will just say in relation to housing is that at UC Berkeley, there is a lot that's being done to make sure that students are able to engage in a meaningful experience that ties their experience as far as like housing and living to what they're learning and what they're doing on campus. So there is a whole team of folks who are there to help you explore what that would look like for you. And so it's never really, too early for you to start asking those questions and exploring what that could look like. And as far as COVID right now, students live on campus. They live in bubbles to be intentional about COVID and, passing on anything that should not be passed on to people. But UC Berkeley is one of the institutions that has the highest rate as far as students having been able to take advantage of the fact that there has been vaccination, and that applies to staff and faculty. We're at 98% at this point in time, and we're very intentional about health regulations and safety precautions.
Great, thank you all for that. At this time, I'm going to have all of you panelists, I believe Emily, Maddie, and Emily W. have put their information in the chat. Ibrahim, would you drop your email one more time in the chat? If any of you have any final thoughts to give us tonight, we'd love to hear from you. Going back the other direction, Emily Wolter, any final thoughts about Monash, please feel free to share before we conclude this evening.
I guess my only thing, especially now that hopefully the world is opening up soon, like I said, if you are in, say, your junior year, for example, I think it's a really exciting time to look about, around the world about your options and where you can choose to study, look at different entry requirements, look at different ways degrees are set out. I know here in Australia, it's different from the US, which is different from the UK or anywhere in Europe as well, Asian countries as well. So yeah, that's just kind of my suggestion, is to look around and really think about the world is about to open up soon, we hope. So just consider, other places as well outside of the US, and even for your study abroad or exchange opportunities as well. Thanks so much, everyone.
Absolutely. Emily, Grube, final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm encouraging you guys to ask questions. I know there was some questions in the chat just about like essay tips and, what can you be doing now? And that's just, staying connected with those colleges that you're interested in. And don't be afraid to, take advantage of the fact that we're all really well versed in Zoom now, and happy to connect with you, wherever you are. So again, do some research yourself, but connect with those current students and staff from those institutions that you're interested in.
Thank you, Emily. Maddie, final thoughts?
Yes, I think just to echo off of the two Emilys is, ask questions, get informed. At the end of the day, all of you being on this call today is showing that you're trying to learn more during your college admissions process. There's so many options out there, and this is an investment in the next 3 or 4 years of your life. So it's important to make sure that you're considering all of your options and asking the questions, because I think I could probably speak for all of us on the call as we want to make sure that you're successful in whatever area you go into. And that's what reps from each school are here for, is to make sure that all of your questions and all of your options are looked into and answered.
Great, and last but not least, Ibrahim, please give us your final thoughts tonight.
Thank you, Grace. So I'm going to go off of what Maddie just said. I think our interest and what we're hoping to do is make sure that you find your right fit. And your right fit may not be UC Berkeley, right? Because you're interested in looking at a specific or unique experience that the community here is not necessarily able to provide to you. Folks noted that this is a big investment. For me, it's not only a question of money and energy, but also personal investment. You're going to be looking for a home for the next 4 or 5 years, as I said earlier, after you're done with high school. And it's very important that you find yourself in a community that's aligned with your values, aligned with who you are, how you want to show up in the world, beyond the ranking and beyond what you're going to be able to study in class and the professor you're going to be with. So do a lot of soul searching at this time, in addition to all the questions that you're asking about the technical pieces, and see, what community space is going to be aligned with you. And because the world is opening, like Emily noted, hopefully you'll be able to go and visit things in person to get an actual feel of what that place has to offer to you. So best of luck with everything, folks, and feel free to reach out to all of us if you have questions or if you have any other concerns that you'd like us to address.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ibrahim. You'll see the slide that has been up for a few minutes here is a QR code for you all to register for our Scholars Day event happening here in Atlanta, Georgia, this November 19th and 20th. We are hoping to see all of you there in person. We are doing everything we can to make this event very safe. We will have social distancing, excuse me, and masks in place so that you feel completely safe at our in-person event. So please scan the QR code here to register for Scholars Day. You can also find the link on our website on our events page. Panelists, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here this evening, afternoon, morning. You're all over the world, so it depends where you are to explain your programs to our members. NSHSS is very proud to call each of you a partner, and thank you all for such an informational session today. With that, we're going to say good afternoon, good evening, and good morning in Emily Wolter's case, and wish you all an incredible rest of your day. Thanks for joining us.